Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss all things to do with the market, that is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to hopefully make some or a lot of money on the internet. Load up for discussion today. We have ETH hitting almost 4K, around 3.9K, but now dipping just beneath. ETH ETFs have the second biggest week, and former Blackrock executive joins Sharplink Gaming. So we'll be talking about ETH in a big way. On today's show, we'll be talking about Zora also being up 260% on the week, almost pushing towards $1 billion FDV at 830 at the moment. Creator coins starting to run on the app. We'll touch on that. And we'll talk about CryptoPunk's floor touching $200,000, was only 100K, like really not long ago. And other 2021, I dare say, historical ETH NFTs moving up. We'll discuss why that's significant in just a little bit. We've got the general conversation as well on where we think attention is flowing and where capital is moving. So stay tuned for that. I've got Legendary and Brett in the co-host seats with me today. Cannot wait to get into it. But just a reminder before we do, nothing we say here is financial advice. The market is very risky. We do not know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it is Monday. It is the 28th of July. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM, doing quite well. Talking about NFTs, I mean, I know we have a headline to get into and we'll do that. But did you guys see, I don't remember who it was and I can't find it on the timeline, the one person who put, I think 100K into NFTs like in 2023 and bought a basket of NFTs, including 96 Rekt Guys, and had a chart, and the Rekt Guys performed everything in that basket that this person had put together.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I saw.
Wait, so they overperformed or underperformed?
Overperformed. I need to find this. I need to find this until the NFT section.
Bro,
I'll find
Grok,
it and I'll
like Grok Guy. I've been trying to I've been using it like the last 2 days to actually scour Twitter for tweets that I know existed, but I had held time finding. Grok has been amazing because the search function's dog shit on Twitter, as everyone knows.
So Grok can actually do that really, really well.
Let's see.
Yeah. Like I was looking up a Haseeb, or I wanted to find a Haseeb tweet today. I was like, literally just like, hey, find me in a tweet from Haseeb who had a reflection post on character roles played on CT, whatever, and dug them all, gave me the exact thing that I wanted from like a year and a half ago. It's great.
We found it already, but I did ask Grok, so I will report back if Grok will find it too. But let's bring it up on screen for the moment. There we go. So this is the 100K NFT purchase in August 2023. 5 squiggles, 1 punk, 4 gazers, favorite art blocks collection by Matt Kane of mine, and 90 Rekt Guys. And this is the portfolio today. Basically, everything is up a touch, but the 90 Rekt Guys alone are $1 million now, or 1.1 M.
Pretty crazy.
Horrible chart. That's a horrible chart. I'll just say that. The content is amazing. I'm glad he did it. This is awesome. I disavow his chart communication skills.
Brett, is this chart better or worse than my spreadsheets?
Oh, bro, you're for the people watching. His BCheck's spreadsheets are art. So we should tokenize that shit, put it on Zora.
Yeah, it would be like an ironic.
It's abstract. Yeah.
I think they do the job, man. They do the job. That's what I'm looking for from a spreadsheet. You know,
your spreadsheets are interpretive spreadsheets, like deconstructed spreadsheets.
Yeah, the core info. That's all you need. Just the core info. Yeah, good stuff. Right. In terms of okay, Brett, what about you? You are still in Copenhagen? You are still
things are good. Yeah, weather's nice. We're hanging out on week 2.5-ish, 2-ish of the Mega Mafia stuff. I've been off the timeline. I'm having a little FOMO from the timeline. Like I know last Friday, Legendary and I were talking about like InfoFi, and then like the one time I opened up the app over the weekend, I saw like a war was brewing on the InfoFi sector, and I was like, shit, did we incite some of this stuff? Things were going crazy. Legendary was cutting it up with some people. I saw things going back and forth with like the Z thing got announced, and like I'm an advisor on there, so like I saw a lot of FUD going for like people that were specifically Vo, because like Vo was shitting on Kaido, but then like now she's an advisor for Zeet. So it's interesting to catch it from off the timeline these days. I'm rarely in this position.
I think one of the things that's happening on the InfoFi sector, and just for people who may not be as familiar, this is obviously things like Kaito, like Zeet, like Cookie, where people are tracking mindshare and the production of content, is that it's been a while since anything's been super lucrative out of there, I think, and therefore people are getting a little bit restless, but a bit critical. My suggestion or prediction for that whole area is that projects are not launching things as much during the summer, and I think there's just going to be this humongous backlog of stuff for September onwards. And so I think as soon as people just get paid from participating, they will start to have more favorable opinions on the sector, is what I'm kind of thinking. But yeah, we'll see. We will see on that. Let's get into some of the data that you are here for, though, and get the show rolling. We've got a lot of good stuff to talk about today, starting with the price action as usual. Let's start off the top with Bitcoin, which is pretty much flat at 118K. Got ETH up almost a couple of percent to 3.8K. XRP is flat at 3. Let me just refresh this. Is that right? I saw this morning it was way higher than that. Did this dip? Okay, it dipped quite a lot even today. Okay, no, maybe that's me. XRP is flat at $3.20. BNB is at an all-time high, up 6%, outperforming all the other majors at $846 all-time high. Ledge, I saw you
at a net worth of $75 billion, given that he has like 60-ish% of the BNB supply.
Jesus, it's still that high.
Yes.
Unreal.
Is that like official or predicted or kind of?
I think it's a pretty accurate. It's a pretty accurate number.
Insane. BNB still, just keeps going up. So,
and nobody talks about it. Like nobody in the West talks about BNB. This is insane. Look at this chart.
Although I guess it's not too similar to Hyperliquid, right? Doesn't the Hyperliquid team technically has like 30 or 40% still sitting in the coffers, right? Like if the thing works, it works. It's bullish supply control, I think, is what we're calling it these days.
I think so. Modeled on Satoshi himself, just keep half of it or however much, and just don't move it anywhere. Give some people some confidence they're not going to get dumped on.
Just double checked for the exact figure for CZ. It is, according to Cointelegraph, around 64% of the total supply.
Interesting. I like BNB. Brad?
That's it. Cool.
Oh, I thought you were glitching.
I wasn't sure. Is it a sentence or is it like FX?
Temporary glitch from Brad there. Okay, other majors. Solana is up a couple of percent as well to 192. Doge is flat. It's not a major. I don't know why I read that one out. Our other favorite ones, Hyperliquid is up 3% to back to 44. Definitely been ranging while other stuff's been doing stuff. Hyperliquid is down 6% on the week, whereas most other things are green. So a bit of underperformance here from Hype. Sui is flat at $4.20. Getting into
back in the territory to flip Hyperliquid again. It's 14.8 versus 14.6 bill.
Yeah, interesting, right? Getting much closer there. So getting into the headlines themselves, we've got ETH hitting 3.9K, ETH ETFs having their second biggest week, and former Blackrock executive joining SharpLink. We'll dive into those details when we discuss the headlines a little later in the show. Got Zora up a crazy amount, 260% on the week, even more on the month, as creator coins start running on the base app. And finally, on the NFT side, things are moving aggressively. CryptoPunk's floor has hit 200K, and other 2021 NFTs like hash masks, that is a blast from the past, up 200% to 0.22 ETH. I know it's not a lot, but for people who are around, these are real blasts from the past. And Mooncats plus 50% to 0.4, not to be confused with Moonbirds for the people who are newer, which are now, by the way, at 2.3 ETH. Mooncats, which is like the even more historical NFTs. There was this big craze in 2021 where you had to go and find them and unlock them out of the contract or something. This big claiming process that people undertook. And And then they kind of got forgotten about a little bit, but so these older NFTs really moving. So we'll discuss those in more detail in a little bit. Some notable price action, as I said, BNB hit all-time high. XRP is at 330. Vine is up 118% to 154 mil. And Athena, the ENA token, up to 10 bill FTV. That's almost doubled in the last week without anyone really paying much attention.
There was a big thing about it. Did you see the post from G on their treasury play?
I haven't read the post, but I saw that they've got a significant amount of buying pressure, which is going to be coming in because of one of these mechanisms that they have set up. Do you want to touch on it?
Yeah, I mean, just the short of it is that like they have expressed that they believe retail capital from within the industry caps out or has capped out traditionally around like $2 trillion, and we've seen it both in the 2021 cycle, and then it's gotten toppy here again the last year or so. And he's just like, I think we're tapped out. I'm kind of worried about it, and that's why we've made a decision that, you know, for a real company with real business and real revenues doing real like work in the industry, we just want access to more capital. Therefore, like we're doing this, like making ourselves available to TradFi, and like the amount of capital that's out there is, I think the figure he showed was like $10 trillion, right? So it's just like we just want more access to more people for our asset. That's it.
Really interesting. What do we think about that? Do you, that general thesis, Brad? Do you think, and then I'll ask the same question to Legendary, because I think everyone in this space is always talking or wondering about like retail, like when is retail coming as an opportunity to kind of know when real crazy speculation is going to take place, and then as an opportunity to know when it's a closer time to sell. But do you think those numbers kind of make sense to you, and that now it doesn't even matter whether retail are coming or not, whoever wants to be in is in, and then it's all about TradFi flows?
I'd be hard pressed to like label retail as what the capital that they're getting access to on the other side, right? It's just it's going to be professional money managers. The only people that are buying into that are people that have, like, the money managers are the ones that are allocating the funds because either the ETF or the treasury vehicle is in some basket of stocks that they have to buy. Most retail just does index shit. They don't do this degen shit that we do. So so that's just to categorize that. The next thing is just that, like, yeah, of course, like there's just more people. It's like it's better. Like more access is better for more people, less friction. Like whether it's the click-through rate or the amount or people deploying capital, it's just like you want as little friction as possible for anyone to be able to achieve the thing that they want to achieve on a moment's notice. So if they want to buy, you want to give them as few hops as possible to be able to acquire If you can remove the educational hurdle of like understanding what the fuck blockchain is or how to get on chain, how to do all that stuff, then like, yeah, it's better. It's just net better. So yeah, I think that's just broadly applicable.
Ledge, what do you think in that direction?
I think we are retail matters, but it doesn't matter under the light of this institutional buying pressure that we're seeing right now. Just think about last week. Galaxy Digital dumped what, $9 billion worth of Bitcoin. Bitcoin went to 115K for like a second, and now we are back to 118, 119K. When Germany dumped their BTC a year ago, so it was like only 3 bill. Obviously, market cap was lower back then, but still, even relatively speaking, it was less compared to the total market cap. And the market didn't shake it off that easily. That took like, I don't know, a couple of weeks, I feel, until we recovered from that. And there was like panic every time someone else moved big amounts of BTC. And now we have Galaxy dumping. We have some Uber whale waking up and moving around 8 billions of BTC and apparently also taking profit on that. And the market's like, yeah, okay, doesn't really matter. And I think a lot of that is to do with the ETF inflows. Obviously, not all of them are being driven by institutions, but I think it is the institutions that are like headline making, that are saying things like, I don't know, or wasn't it Ray Dalio, I think, who said 15% of your portfolio should be allocated to BTC to escape the spiral of the dollar becoming worthless. So it does take like the institutions, the money coaches, influencers, whatever you want to call them, to talk more positively about crypto, and then retail will lure in, will FOMO in as well. But I think primarily institutionally driven move.
Yeah, I think that kind of thought process makes sense to me too. Nothing to add there then. The interesting insight. Ledge, is there anything going on the NFT side that we need to know about?
We'll have a separate headline set, so I'm gonna keep it short. Some of the things you mentioned already, primarily Moonbirds being up 40% on the week, 11% on the day, 2.6 ETH floor there, but also very impressively CloneX, talking about historical NFTs being up 13% on the day, 0.27. It says 40%.
How do you feel about Moonbirds flipping Azuki?
Good. But let me just finish that train of thought here, because CloneX were as low as like 0.18 or so of the week, so and went as high as 0.3, so they basically were up 80% at some point. Azuki's, as you said, they are down 5% over the last week. 2 ETH floor there versus 2.6 for Moonbirds, and it's very momentum driven. Obviously, I mean, you have token speculation around the Moonbirds. The other collection, Azuki, is a post-token one. There is fresh sense of hope, optimism with Spencer doing his thing. But a move like this, at least in my opinion, is partially driven by token speculation. I would feel better if I had bought Moonbirds after we had Spencer on the show. Like, we interviewed him, he laid out the thesis, and I was like, actually, that's dope. I should buy some Moonbirds, but somehow never did. Maybe because it was too busy stacking bad buns. But very, very awesome to see that comeback.
Yeah, it's cool. It is cool. I've got one. But I do think that they've also kind of collected a bunch of very influential people to be very positive about Moonbirds. And I guess that is partly also to do with the founder, who's able to pick up the phone and call certain people and say, like, look, this is what we're doing, this is our plans, and kind of rally some of the people and inspire them to get on board, to get on the train. So I think that's definitely happened. If you've been observing the people who are now speaking about Moonbirds, who had previously never specifically liked Moonbirds. So I think that's part of it. Brad, did you
I've been off the timeline. Yeah, so I've been off the timeline, but so in the few windows that I have observed people talking, Mike Dudas' willingness to shill is
so that's
impressive.
That's what I was that's the main person who I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
very influential VC, has been very successful as VC, coming fresh off big success on the pump.
Yeah, the pump win. Yeah,
the pump win, absolutely putting Moonbirds kind of on his back. Well, there's a lot of other people as well, and there's a lot of other stuff going well for them as well. But you know, certainly coming out like swinging hard for the team. So yeah, that's definitely one of the people to keep an eye on.
Definitely also want to hear from Austin, who just joined us on stage on our NFT conversation before we move on to the Web3 roundup. Austin, welcome to the stage.
GM guys, great to join as a NFT participant and not as a part of a team. But yeah, I also wanted to send some kudos and shed light, I think, on why Moonbirds is ripping so aggressively right now. Obviously, Spencer, you guys kind of spoke to the fact people understand his vision, and it's all momentum driven. I think people also forget that in addition to running OCAP, he ran one of, if not the most successful NFT funds of the last cycle in Spencer Ventures, and was a top 5 trader individually on Blur during the last cycle. So he knows every single major whale and institutional in the space. And I think I'm bashing my own head against the wall for not buying Moonbirds when he came in, because it's very clear that he has a bunch of institutional and whale money that is looking to come in the space and just has access to them. That's something that I think is particularly interesting when you compare it to Azuki, when you think about momentum, because historically they had a lot of particularly Asian whales, and that's why you saw a lot of run-ups. That's why you saw on the the Upbit announcement, why Anime Coin ran so aggressively. But I think that they've also kind of lost a few of those in the last 6 months, and part of that being momentum driven. So it'll be interesting to see how those things tend to normalize, but I don't see this run stopping for Moonbirds anytime soon.
Yeah, very excellent point on the fund. I think people who've been around for a bit know that, but it's good to articulate that for people who are unaware. And sorry, go on.
Yeah, do you think there's a time factor here? Like this is what always happens. Right? You get very excited. You see the potential of any given setup, which I think this is one. But I'd like to hear a little bit more about the OCAP games and his specific ambitions for this. But like sometimes it just takes time to lay the pipe, or lay the code, lay the whatever, like put it down and actually do the thing, and then have it materialize. So the bullishness can only hold up for so long in the face of that, right? You just got to cook for a little bit. So when are you expecting delivery on the next catalyst outside of just excited for the next catalyst situation?
It's interesting that I actually think execution could be bearish right now when Bitcoin is running at an all-time high and ETH is approaching 4K. I think that there is enough just macro momentum. If he just continues to show up on the timeline and behind the scenes is getting people to buy in, then that in of itself is probably enough currency for people to just be paying attention to, rather than starting to deliver more on the collectible brand thesis. I actually think that will make the brand feel smaller than it does right now, because right now it's just purely built on what it could be, and that likely changes when we start to see Bitcoin and Ethereum start to top out.
Yeah, interesting thoughts. I am also thinking for Moonbirds in particular, the relationship between the company Orange Cap Games, which has Vibes, which is pudgy IP, like this TCG game, which has legit gone around the world and created a lot of demand. There's photos of these gaming events where loads of people are coming to play the game. They love the game. And then there's Moonbirds as well, which is separate to that, not a TCG, but this kind of Web3 native IP. And I'm just kind of interested how these two things interact. I was an investor in Orange Cap, which I'm super happy with, and I think they're doing an awesome job. I guess Moonbirds is obviously a part of that, which I'm also happy with, because they're kind of doing these things in conjunction. But how you decide to structure the priorities and how these things interact and what the business model is or if it does go in the direction of a token, I guess that I'm thinking how are these things gonna be together, if at all? Maybe they're not. Maybe one is Moonbirds, or maybe Orange Cap Games is separate. I don't know.
I think I mean, I had Spencer on for an interview a few weeks ago, and he was pretty clear that the acquisition of Moonbirds was because he saw an opportunity to build a real collecting ecosystem with Moonbirds and leveraging the IP in the their collecting ecosystem. So cards being one opportunity, but I think there will be other verticals that they look to explore. Those things are just gonna take time to manifest, and that's why it's even when they come to market, I would be less focused. I would be much more focused on the marketing of them, of how big they can get, versus the actual fundamentals of what is the true output at that point in time, because it's just going to take time to ramp.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Appreciate your additional thoughts, Austin. Mindless, welcome to the stage, my man. What did you want to contribute here on Moonbirds, Orange Cap Games, or anything else to do the NFT conversation?
Yo, what's up, gentlemen? Hello, another great discussion here. You baited me initially with the BNB discussions. I'll get to that in a second, but I want to come up and actually talk about the Moonbirds scenario. With a contrarian take, as always, I want to put a question to all of us. How much of this is simply because ETH has gone up, and therefore a lot of these NFTs are, as we know, just a leverage bet on ETH? So they're very scarce. A bunch of people just move into them, and then the rest of that is just narrative. That's a question mark I want to leave there. Because I'm willing to bet the majority of this is just a leverage bet on ETH, and we're now making up narratives as to why these things are good because prices have gone up. Eventually, prices will go down, and we'll have reasons as to why they failed and why price went down, right?
Yeah.
the BNB discussion, I think this is the epitome of an underdog, right? What happens on Twitter, in my opinion, is that these are social media platforms, so they create echo chambers for us. And over the last 12 months, we've curated this echo chamber of Ethereum-based network and Solana. So anything outside of that, we're kind of excluded from. It's not that it doesn't have a presence in the West. It has a massive presence in the West. I think it's just ourselves here. We've kind of trapped ourselves in these bubbles, and then we see something like BNB that comes out of so-called nowhere. We forget it's been here 3 crypto cycles, right? Over 8 years, it's done a 5,000x from its ICO. It's one of the few things that are still here from the ICO, and it's broken all-time highs. It's kind of like BNBs to Ethereum as Litecoin is to Bitcoin. It's kind of the narrative, but yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Appreciate it.
It makes me wonder what the trenches are like over there. Because no one on our timeline's talking about apps they're playing with or meme coins or whatever. Like it has to, I wonder what it feels like to just like hang out on BNB. Like what apps are there to use? What like is the hold time even less than the 45 seconds on Solana? Like, is it wild? I don't know. Is it longer? Who knows?
Yeah, I think there's more apps deployed on BNB than there is on anything else after ETH. That surprised me. I think it's like there's ETH with the majority of apps, then it's BNB, and there's a bunch of these other things like Polygon, and I think Solana's like 5th or 6th.
Yeah, I like it. I think one of the things we've always said about BNB, and we're going to circle back to ETH in a second. We'll go to Legendary for a bit of a general update before Bread's conversation on ETH. I think it's like a Western mindshare thing. Like, BNB coming out of the East, we don't look at it as much, don't talk about it as much, always know that it's there. Very rarely as clued up on it and what's going on as people should be. And keeps performing super well, like as well as anything else. And then at times there's these pockets of outperformance as well. To your previous point, Minus, and then I'm going to hand over to Legendary to just give a bit of a general market update before Brett does the ETH stuff. I think not only are people looking for a reason that the ETH NFTs are good when really ETH is just up and people are generally feeling bullish. ETH itself, people are wondering which aspect of the narrative that which aspect of the narrative was the one that made it so valuable now, when really it's just time. Like the American economy and the way that the president is setting things up for the general risk appetite for the market is very, very good. And in addition to that, then you have this thing where the ETH ETF inflows were basically nothing, and you have these new champions who've come to Wall Street to say, right, we want to send this asset now. Kind of really opening that up. So I definitely agree with price leading narrative in many, many ways.
I did a quick fact check just as Mylan's brought it up. I wanted to see. I looked on DeFi Llama, and this is just protocols that are indexed by DeFi Llama. But he was right that it's Ethereum at 1,500 apps or 1,450, and then BSC is second at 913, and then the next one behind that is Arbitrum, Polygon, Base at 800, 600, and 550 respectively. And then BSC has the third highest DeFi TVL behind Ethereum and Solana. So yeah, plenty of apps, plenty of liquidity, just nothing on our timelines.
Yeah, perfectly justifiable then. Let's check in with Austin once before we go back to Legendary. Austin.
Yeah, this is probably going to get me in trouble, but fuck it. Binance plays a very, very heavy hand in why BNB outperforms market. I mean, they, particularly with like CZ coming back, just working with them on Dude and hearing from market makers, and they very much like are looking for like and pushing hard for application development for tokens to be on BNB. Like the exchange itself kind of pushes that narrative and is like incentive aligned in pushing that to the detriment of other tokens. Like you can imagine who they see as their competitors and not listing them or just like really pushing that narrative in the East. So it is like a full top down execution. It's not like Base kind of like being off on the side and like developing in line with Ethereum. It's literally like top down directive from Binance building BNB, which is why I think you get a lot of development.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. I think you can kind of see part of what you just described was like the centralized exchanges being fairly methodical in who they list and who they don't list. And it's never been more apparent in like the most recent cycle where there are coins doing unbelievably well. And there's just like crickets coming out of the general centralized exchanges, like, and people kind of incredulous. Why are these things not getting listed? Like they're really, really good. You would do well off them, but you know, the decision-making process is still super opaque. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of the volume is just getting siphoned off to these DeFi, slightly more open platforms. So interesting stuff. This is getting people going. Led, we are going to come to you in a moment. Mindless, you wanna chime back in? Funky, your hand is raised. This is kind of intrigued me. So let's go on this a little bit more, and then we're going to circle back in a sec. Mindless.
Yeah, thanks, man. And just to the brother recently, I agree with you. I totally do. Chain wars is a thing, and it has been a thing for a very long time. Ethereum versus all of the previous smart contract chains versus BNB versus Solana versus L2s versus onwards and onwards, right? It's one of the reasons I think BNB had a really hard time in the US because Coinbase wanted it thrown out because that was the biggest competitor for its own L2, right? So we've seen this. It's not different in any way. So I think BNB and Binance is just playing the same game that even the Ethereum Foundation has been playing and Coinbase itself has been playing. It's a really competitive space out there, dudes.
Agree.
I don't think it's the same game for what it's worth. I think that they play it. It might be the same game. They play it much, much more aggressively and with slightly more opaque rules.
Let's see all the rules. Let's put all the rules out there. Then we'll decide. Funky, hands raised. Welcome to the stage, my man. Final take on this, and then we're moving on with the general market discussion, the ETH discussion, the NFT discussion, and I think something else super important, but we'll get there in a sec. Funky.
GM boys, yeah, I just wanted to chime in on the whole BNB thing as an infrastructure provider. So there are 3 block builders for the BNB smart chain. There's not a whole lot of block builders. And as one of those block builders told me in Dubai, this is the darkest of dark forests when it comes to MEV and what's happening there. There are, it's a very small validator set. We, of course, run one. They believe that many of the validators are actually run by the foundation, just under different names. We ourselves are doing something specific with this block builder to where we will have OFAC compliant blocks for institutional customers through our custodial relationships. So BNB is a super interesting chain. Obviously, it drives a ton of transactions and volume, but to the broader conversation and what Austin's saying and others, like what's happening in those transactions and where are they coming from? And I'll leave it at that. Good
questions. Maybe we'll get the answers at some point during the cycle. Maybe we won't. I'm guessing the more that this activity gets siphoned off to other places, I'm expecting some response, whether it's either something on the product side, whether it's legal to go after Hyperliquid or anyone else that might be kind of eating into their market share. I don't think they're just going to sit by and do nothing for sure. So maybe price action going up is one of the best forms of marketing anyway. Legendary. We finally get to your section here.
Let me get a take in here.
Okay. Finally, everyone else has had their word. You can come very
patient. I think if you kind of follow the incentives, and we said it with CC having such a large stake in the BNB token, and then you have the token listings on Binance with a very strong flow back to BNB stakers. It's obviously CC's way to monetize these TGs, and this is why Binance is negotiating the listing deals in a very, very aggressive way. On the other hand, on the opaqueness, I feel like every exchange of a certain size has had their opaque moments, some more, some less. We've seen instant listings for tokens that surprised a lot of people with many of the big exchanges. Remember a lot of Binance related stuff as well, but also like, because we mentioned Coinbase, was Venice AI. I think it was towards the end of last year that got insta listed on Coinbase, was like one of the most insane charts that I've seen in a while. So I feel like that crypto is now getting more and more spotlight, and we are seeing clearer regulations, both in the not only both in America, in Asia, in Europe as well, that things will get less and less opaque over time, and more of these things will be ultimately handled in court and will follow up with the regulation, which is ultimately, I think, a good result, unless that regulation gets too restrictive, which seems to be the case in the EU.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's actually
completely agree with that for what it's worth. Coinbase is like entirely a black box, but at least like their application process is the same for everyone. Like it is one form that you fill out, you hear back from the team or you don't. And like that's basically that. But you know that like everyone is playing by the same rules. The part that I think is fair to point out is that those rules are changing a little bit in real time. But in the East, I think that it's just like it's very different. There's the front door, there's the side door, there's the back door, who you know is like really, really important in how that entire process plays out.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a couple of things I wish I could say on the show, but I can't. But I did mention the EU, which is the segue into my segment talking about the EU. President Donald Trump did negotiate finally a tariff and trade deal with the European Union, which led to quite some controversy. From the US's perspective, it's a massive, massive win, given that the EU is now facing a 15% US tariff. That means EU exports into the US will be tariffed with 15%. That is lower than the 30% that Trump had threatened initially. It is higher than UK's rate of 10%, but it also means that the EU car makers will face a 15% US import tax, which is still lower than, again, the 25% global tariff that was introduced back in April. There's exemptions, stuff like steel and aluminum, which will continue to face a 50% tariff when sold into the US. And in another article, the BBC had a pretty good breakdown of what it means, who's winning, who's losing. Just going to give the key points because I think it's really interesting to hear that. Capital economics, it do suggest that this is going to cause a 0.5% knock on the EU's GDP because it is a deal where the US is winning. In terms of some other winners and losers, stocks in both Asia and Europe are up on that news. European solidarity is a loser because you can see commentary from the different presidents and ministers from around the EU countries, some of them being very happy, some of them calling it a very dark day for the EU. Car makers in Germany obviously are losers of that. Car makers in the US are winning. EU pharmaceuticals are a loser. Stuff like Ozempic and many, many more things get massively exported to the US. They are a main importer of European pharmaceuticals. On the other hand, US energy is a win of that. Trump said that the EU will purchase $750 billion in US energy in addition to increasing overall investment in the US by $600 billion. We will replace Russian gas and oil with significant purchases of US LNG, which is liquefied natural gas, oil, and nuclear fuels. That was said by Germany's von der Leyen. And then the aviation industry in both the EU and the US will be winners of that because there are some strategic products, quote unquote, in a continued statement by von der Leyen, that will not attract any tariffs, including aircraft and plane parts, certain chemicals, and also some agricultural products, just to give a quick rundown on what has happened in this massive, massive tariff and trade deal.
Big stuff. I guess the trade stuff is just like slowly being checked off and being reduced as a risk factor, I think, as the world either gets super comfortable with the tariffs that are in place, for the ones that are not, or maybe like kind of up for negotiation, like these things are just getting resolved in some way and fairly positively. Just another point here, Legendary, the S&P is now, I guess I wasn't paying attention to this number as much. So I think it touched 6.4K. Like 6,388 is the S&P right now. So like just absolutely rocketing the stocks and crypto and everything just running.
You got to give some perspective for people who aren't familiar with the S&P historical numbers. Why is 6,400 important to you?
Well, it's just unbelievably high. If you look at when the last dip, which was, sorry, Ledge, do you want to? Oh, you've got the chart.
Yeah, just getting up chart on that. Pre-market is, by the way, up even more. Pre-market is at 6.4K. I think it's very. Let's get even more of a chart. That's not enough. There we go. I mean, A, we are at all-time high, but B, what we also have seen is that was back in February, the S&P was at 6K, but then all the tariff threats and the tariff war started, which led to the S&P dipping all the way down to 5K points. And from that low, that was in April. It was in April. Now we're like 3 months later, 3.5 months later, we are up to 6.5K, which is basically almost 30%.
Any thoughts here, Ledge? Like I'm increasingly a person that thinks in terms of either 3-month periods, but also like political cycles rather than just like any other 4-year cycle or anything like that. Try to keep it simple. I just have like, I think they really, really want to run it hot into midterms now. Like I need to double check when that date is. But we've definitely got a period of months here. Maybe you can Google it while I'm just like finishing the thought. I just feel like all of this stuff is so manufactured now. Like everything is so manufactured. All of the press fighting with Powell about reducing rates and, you know, that being on the agenda. And making sure everyone knows that that's on the agenda so that the market will respond because it starts pricing reduced rates. And that's partly why we've been ripping across the board, right? Because they keep saying that that is going to happen with or without Powell at some point in time. And I feel like just all of this stuff is very kind of telegraphed in a sense. Ledge, do you have a thought there?
Yeah. First of all, midterms are November 3rd, 2026. I agree with the thinking, and I think that the midterms essentially will be when the quote unquote the top is in. The question is when the market will price it in. Typically, stock markets, equity markets are forward looking, anywhere between like 6 to 9 months. So I still stand by what I said a couple of weeks earlier that, you know, ceteris paribus, if nothing else changes, towards the end of this year might be a good time to take some risk off the table. Because you also mentioned rates. Let me bring up this poly market quickly. Fed decision September, $5 million of volume. That is now starting to inch up again. That we will see a 25 bips decrease. That was actually last week more in the area of like 40%. I don't want to sign in right now. 40% that we're going to see that 25 bips decrease and no change at 54%. But now it has flipped again and went as high as a 56%. That is basically a 20% relative move towards the market being more confident that we're going to see a rate cut in September. So it's just confirming what you said before.
Pretty sure I saw some numbers where like inflation's actually just starting to tick up again though. I'm not convinced it's going to come as soon. It might be that's like a little bit contrarian at the moment, just based on like various conversations I listen to, various research I'm doing. Like I'm actually not as convinced it's going to come as soon as people would like. I don't know if that's necessarily bullish. I don't know if that's necessarily bearish because it doesn't, in a way, it doesn't even matter when it comes because people just keep looking forward to it coming. And so I don't know if it matters if it doesn't come in September because people will then be thinking, well, it hasn't come in September, well, it's definitely going to come in the next opportunity. So I don't know if that's a terrible thing, but I'm just getting a sense it's not actually going to come when people want. No strong view there. Just kind of me thinking out loud.
Based on inflation in June is up to 2.7%.
Yeah, this is what I mean. So like
previous 12-month period.
I don't know if that's like a healthy decision. And given that Powell is like sticking to has been sticking to his guns so far, like I don't know why you would then backtrack when inflation starts ticking up out of nowhere. So I think, yeah, let's see. Those are my thoughts out loud. Ledge, unless you've got any thoughts on the economy there, I think we would definitely want to talk about SBET. Sorry, we definitely talk about ETH. We definitely want to talk about the inflows for the ETF and a little bit of SBET. And then we want to talk about Zora, because that's like one of the net new things that's been popping off. The NFT conversation, I think we've already had. Just any final point on the economy, Ledge?
No, let's move on. We got approximately 10 minutes left. So let's hit the next headlines.
Let's do it. Brad, ETH is moving. The ETF's looking healthy. SBET is wanting to buy all of the ETH. What do we need to know here?
Yeah, things are bullish if you can't tell from the price action. So the two headlines and then some ETF news are for SharpLink, which is obviously behind SBET. They hired Joseph Shalom as a co-CEO. And if you're not familiar with that name, which I wouldn't imagine you are, he actually used to be the head of digital assets at Blackrock. And he was responsible for bringing IBIT, ETH, and BITL to fruition, right? So he's huge in institutional frameworks for bringing these digital assets on chain. And if you go to his profile, you can see he's all in on Ethereum and tokenizing the world. So that's obviously bullish for SBET as a company, and just broadly because the political connections, I'll say political, even though it is TradFi, of this person being super bullish on ETH because it's a vehicle for ETH that he's working for now, is great for the ecosystem and for the asset broadly. And then just as a side note for SharpLink is that they purchased another $300 million worth of ETH recently. So the entire thing is just up and to the right. I know last week, Legendary and I were talking about Bitminer, I think is the official name, versus SBET. And if like one of them is going to achieve escape velocity and like become the thing that basically everyone just doubles down into, this is a good counter to what Tom Lee would have been as the KOL on the TradFi side, right? Like he's the one that spun up the narrative. This guy's got a lot of connections. Like that's, if he's coming from Blackrock, you have to think there's some pull there. So if one of them is going to pull away, I said Bitminer last week. This one has me questioning. I still believe in the power of the KOL. So I think Bitminer is going to be the one that stays in the lead and pulls away just because it is his narrative, and he's got a persona now. But this has me questioning my decision. And then the next thing on top of that was just like general ETF flows. Last week we had the highest ETF inflows for Ethereum, and actually this weekend I did a comparison of the inflows of ETH and BTC relative to their issuance rates, because I know I had talked about it before. Like one, the relative size to their actual market caps or FDVs, like the inflows are actually disproportionate ETH, but then also the issuance, because Ethereum has a capped issuance. It's like 0.71 is what I've seen for the last full year of ETH issuance. So if you take the amount of inflows in dollars and compare it to the amount of net assets issued day over day, like over the last 30 days, there's 26 if you count the weekends or don't count the weekends. It's had like 560 days worth of issuance gobbled up by these ETFs. And this doesn't even include the treasury companies. So like the net new ETH that is getting put into the world is being vastly outstripped by the amount of demand that's coming in from these ETFs. And it basically means you're accumulating all this stuff from people or holders who have had ETH. So you have to imagine there's a little bit of a supply shock coming if like these level of flows continue to happen. And when you have bullish news like the head of Blackrock joining a specific ETH treasury vehicle, yeah, sounds good.
These types of hires are like, you know what I'm like, guys. When I see, I'm like watching the timeline, like who knows who's interacting with who's having photos taken with who. Like this person used to work here, now they're there. Like I love seeing, like watching and joining those dots as part of my investment thesis. Like when I saw that on Friday, I was like, okay, this is really big, really big.
You know what I hate? This plays into the stuff that we have been talking about for the last like year and a half. I hate it because like we were right and we like it just didn't lock in on it. Like the entire thing was that there are so many people in so many established positions with so many man hours spent on furthering Ethereum and ETH that like there has to be some kind of material gain from that, and just not knowing that like the magnitude of the gain. And now we're starting to see that it's materializing as, you know, SBET coming to market and then them recruiting the head of the Blackrock to join this. Like these things were always seeded throughout the world. And like, it was just whether or not they could capture the zeitgeist of everyone else that they were in communication with and like leverage their networks to like have them buy their bags. Joseph Lubin, it wants people to buy his bags so bad. He created this treasury company. He is now working with the head of digital assets from Blackrock. Like the power in which he was able to like tell that story and recruit these people was always a possibility, but like I did not anticipate this magnitude.
For sure. I think as I've said previously, it's just the stars needed to align. The market needed to be ready. The politics needed to be ready. Like all of this stuff, the interest rates needed to come down. Like all of this stuff's just happening very much at the time that it was supposed to happen, I guess. And maybe some people were just a touch impatient, thinking the fundamentals could force it through without. And I think that's the greatest learning actually there. It's like fundamentals count for sure, but you need the environment, the broader environment to really get these things moving. The stars need to align. Interesting stuff. So glad we touched on ETH, because that's moving very nicely, and a lot of bullish catalysts continuing there. Ledge, what do we need to know on the Zora side?
I like the vision that Joseph Shalom is sharing for SBET.
What did you say?
We are building a bridge between institutional capital and Ethereum native yield, packaged in a single public equity.
Why do you like that one?
Because I'm a I'm a holder of SBET.
Because what a wonderful vision.
So they're gonna make that productive.
Yes, as part of that, I said our goal is not to just hold ETH, but to activate it using native staking, restaking, and Ethereum based. I mean, the staking part we did know.
Yeah, they're trying to front run the staking, basically.
Yeah. So let's see how they want to farm yield, if that's going to be lending or other things that they have in mind. But that's interesting how far they will push the yield component, because TradFi bros do love the yield on an asset that's already going up in price.
Called out restaking there too. I like my counter hot take, whatever. I think Ethereum has another run. Ethereum Eigenlayer has another run over the next, say, 12 months. And that's just because, like, I think it just takes a long time for those type of ecosystems to come to surface. Like, it just takes time to lay the code, as we said earlier. I think we'll start seeing some of those things bubble up and get people excited again, and like they're ready to be heard again type beat.
I like that take, based on nothing other than like being aware of some of the stuff that Eigenlayer has been doing, and just thinking about the way things flow, the way capital flows through. It's like, okay, well, ETH, people are getting incredibly bullish on ETH now. The only thing that I guess would put a question mark against all these things, including Athena, which is something I've always been super bullish on, now is up to 70 cents. It went down as low as 25. I just want to keep an eye on the unlocks. Like the unlocks for all of these tokens has been very, very aggressive. And whether it's Eigenlayer or Athena, like just keeping an eye out for them, making sure you know when they are, you don't need to know who the sellers are, but just knowing like the rough amounts that might be getting sold into the market. You just got to keep an eye on. And Eigenlayer was definitely one of the tokens that like suffered from that to some degree. Okay.
Absolutely. And for people who want to keep that in mind, there is a very good website, which I can't bring up because my VPN is blocking it. It's called dropstab.com/vesting, that has a beautiful unlock calendar, which I not affiliated with them in any way, but it's just a tool that I like to use to keep exactly those dates in mind. Good
stuff. Very, very helpful as usual. Maybe Ledge, we will add that to the Telegram.
That's
just as we're talking about it. One administrative point before we get into the final headline. A lot of people have reached out about the Telegram group, which we are setting up, that will be out with you, just like finalizing these tabs, right? Putting together these helpful websites, helpful protocols, things that we like, putting them all in one place, along with just doing a bit of final bits of design. So the people who reached out, we will be reaching out with the invite link pretty soon. I want to say today. If it isn't today, it will be tomorrow. But that is coming soon. Thanks so much for reaching out. I appreciate the pretty insane amount of interest, given that we didn't really tweet about it. I put one tweet out on Friday. But we've just mentioned to our core listeners first, we want you guys to get in and just start to hopefully find and share the things that we find useful, basically. So it'll be a great place to navigate crypto and hopefully a core community that you can kind of learn from and chat with, and, you know, outside of the show hours. So that will be coming ASAP. Legendary, take it away with the final headline. Zora stuff's really been a lot of action there. So what do we need to know?
Zora's token has been up massively, almost a 10x over the last month. For those who are not familiar with the platform, basically every post on Zora, I'm scrolling through the feed, is collectible, is tokenized, and that has been gaining massive traction. It's a very interesting chart to look at over the last month. As I said, it's up 900%. And it never really, if we zoom out and look on it never really had its run up. Like, this is the first massive breakout that we've seen. Also in terms of some of the collectibles that have been tokenized, including Jack Butcher's, a creator coin on Zora, which did run up from 100K market cap to a $14 million market cap. It has come down after that. It's currently trading at 4.2 mil. It's the first time that we've seen both of these things happening on Zora in conjunction, the token running up massively, as well as certain creator coins just doing numbers. I see Brad shaking his head. Definitely also want to offer a more critical take on that run up. Let me just find it with all the tabs that I have. There we go. This is by Rich, who says, this Zora rally is the same as the May 2025 LaunchCon rally. We have a quote unquote interesting app, clean UI, a bunch of promises, KOL shilling, parabolic price action, insane flywheel, and we know what happens next. And he put both of those charts next to one another. I think it's a pretty reasonable take to have. And I think it's also a reflection of the fact that we not only have like the competition between L2s, but we also have the competition between all those, let's call them launch pads. Like, technically Zora is not really a launch pad. It portrays itself more as a social media platform. But ultimately, what is the best way to market all of those? It is having successful tokens on them. So I can see the temptation of the individual teams wanting to have those successful tokens to report on. Let's put it like that. So it's unsurprising to see that happening on the launchpads, social media platforms, whatever you call them, who have enough traction and capital to pull off charts like these.
I will always 100% of the time fade anytime there's a post that goes, I made X amount of dollars today, only today. Because you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Thread Guy whenever he was doing all this stuff for DGen. He's like, oh my God, posting on Farcaster, I'm making $750,000 annualized at these numbers. Like, no shit, dude. And like, you're a one of one, and like the money's not coming from anywhere. Like, you like to have a sustainable ecosystem, you need inflows to match the outflows, at least to a degree, and hopefully like outpace it, right? It's the same shit we saw with Frentech. Once the inflows started drying up, once like the appetite to actually like gamble on this shit, or the desire to actually post in that stuff starts fading, well, guess what? Like, you run out of water, and like the holes in the boat start showing, and then like everyone pulls out the knives, and they got to start knifing each other to try to like scramble for the last little bit of water that's left in there. So it's gonna do the exact same thing. And I'm eternally bearish on alternate media platforms where like people have to go away from the main conversation to do with things, whether that's Farcaster or whether Frentech was like a little bit of a special thing because it was like a DMs thing and it wasn't like pulling the public discourse away. But this is kind of pulling some of the public discourse with the same thing that DGen did, where you could tip people in the post and like do a little bit. I'm bearish on them. So like it gets fun, play the game. It's going to go the exact same path.
Strong prediction there. I have to agree with you when you're trying to pull people away from Twitter. It's just like the network effect here is so strong. Got to be incredibly compelling / give in to the network effect and figure out how you can do your thing like on Twitter in a way. So I agree with that aspect. The one thing I'd say for people as we just close out the show, you know, if you're looking for a little bit of an opportunity here, I would definitely agree with Brad in the sense that, you know, buying coins high in that ecosystem, I think is incredibly risky. You're going further down the risk curve anyway, and that's even more risky. I do think there's probably an opportunity in an ecosystem, and this is the reason why it's an opportunity. It's like it's got a small amount of attention relative to the rest of CT at the moment. So like, if you were going to go and sign up to the app and try to catch the things early, like right now, there are prominent people who are, whether they know it or not, they are catching, whether they know it or not, they're launching these coins, and then there's this opportunity to catch them as well. And so I don't think everyone's over there. There's this like attention arbitrage in a way, and there are some prominent people who are launching at the moment. So you might catch a runner like Jack Butcher the other day, where the price went crazy, right? It went from nothing to 11 mil in 24 hours or something. So there is that opportunity. Ledge, any final thoughts?
Nothing to add to that.
Good stuff. Anything else, Brad, from your side?
Oh man, this has been fun. See you guys Wednesday.
Good. Right, guys, that is the show for today. Hope you enjoyed it as usual. If you are new here, and we are getting some new people here, you can see people in the comments on YouTube. If you're on Twitter, thanks for joining us. We do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time, live for 1 hour on X, on YouTube, and you can catch us on Apple and Spotify as well. All of our links are on our Twitter account. I shared it in the YouTube comments. If you want to find us, we are about to embark on a Telegram journey. That link will be getting shared privately. So the people who reached out to us first, they'll be like the first cohort of people who get in. And then we'll be expanding it out. The vision being we want our community to have a place where we can share the protocols that we like, the things that we find interesting, the things we find are helpful to navigate this space, which is incredibly complicated, annoying, risky, and trying to, just make sense of it all and give you a chance to talk to people, like-minded people who are trying to navigate the same thing. So that is coming very soon. Hope you want to be a part of that. We'd love it if you did. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, we'll be back with you tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a wonderful day. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.